What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and this is the first episode of our Marvel Rivals character guides. I've actually had a hard time getting that phrase right. I wanted to do something interesting, so I figured in this series we would break down heroes' abilities, how they work together, and the best strategies for using them effectively. And of course, kicking things off, we've got Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man's abilities are broken down into 3 sets. There's his normal attacks, his special abilities, which are active and passive, and then his ultimate. And so the first thing we'll do is go over his regular attacks. And Spider-Man's regular fire move is his SpiderPower. When he uses this, Spider-Man lunges forward for a 25 damage strike with his fists. Now, SpiderPower is a combo move, so if you can land 2 consecutive punches, the third will be a flying kick, which will actually allow you to travel 4 meters to deliver 40 damage. And these are just base figures. If Spider-Man can get a spider tracer onto an enemy target, SpiderPower will deal bonus damage. Now, Spider-Man's alt fire attack is the Cyber Web Cluster, a range shot that hits his opponents with webbing. It's not really as damaging as Spider-Man's melee strikes, but this is how you apply the Spider Tracer to your opponents. And so this should really be your first strike, if at all possible. But next we have Spider-Man's abilities, the things that he has that other heroes cannot do. And as you would probably guess, there's a heavy movement slant to someone like Spider-Man. He's very much a twitch character. And so Web Swing is his trademark move, letting him move extremely fast across the map. Now, Spider-Man can hold up to 3 charges of Web Swing at once, and each activation carries him 30 meters at the maximum, and then it takes him 6 seconds to regain that charge. So you can't really spam this ability, meaning you're going to want to have to pick your moments whenever you use it. If possible, you should aim to keep at least 1 charge of Web Swing available just to escape some kind of a chaotic fight. But that's not Spider-Man's only real movement-based ability. There is an ability called Thwip and Flip, which gives him a double jump, which is really perfect for navigating a chaotic group fight and then getting where he has to go. Out of combat, Wall Crawl allows Spider-Man to move vertically over a wall. You simply just press jump when next to a wall, and then Spider-Man's wall crawling kicks in. It's not that complicated, but while doing this, you can use the primary fire button to sprint, which actually allows Spider-Man to move over the wall really fast. Now, this is not going to replace Web Swing as a way to enter or leave combat, because it is vulnerable to ranged attacks, meaning you're going to have to keep your eye out for Hawkeye, Black Widow, Iron Man, anybody who can shoot you from a distance. But it is perfect for repositioning and coming at the enemy team from a different angle. And since it doesn't really cost you any charges, you'll still have your Web Swing ready for the actual fight itself. But Spider-Man is not just about movement. Spider Sense actually gives him a warning if any enemies enter an 8-meter spherical radius around him. So trying to sneak up on Spider-Man is ultimately a waste of time if you're paying attention to your surroundings. And so as soon as the warning triggers, you can swing away and get clear of whatever it was that was trying to attack you. Now, when it comes to hitting back, Spider-Man does have abilities for that as well. Amazing Combo is his more powerful melee ability, launching an enemy into the air with an uppercut. This does leave enemies vulnerable to follow-up attacks from your teammates. It is also important to note that Amazing Combo does 55 damage, but it can also be boosted with a Spider Tracer. Now, there is a 2-second cooldown, so it's not that expensive of a maneuver to use, and so it really shouldn't stop you from working it into your fights. But at range, Spider-Man has Get Over Here. It is a range web projectile which deals 25 damage, but the most important part of this ability is that it actually pulls in the enemy target, putting them right next to you. Now, if the enemy target has a Spider Tracer active, Get Over Here is inverted, meaning Spider-Man is pulled directly to that person instead, and then delivers a 50 damage kick. But finally, we have Spider-Man's ultimate, the Spectacular Spin. Now, it is an AoE continual blast, and for those of you guys who don't know what that means, AoE is area of effect, and this basically has Spider-Man spinning in place and then firing out web shots extremely fast. Now, these shots only really do about 12 damage per hit, but they keep going, and they slow the enemy down. And that's the real value with this ultimate. Each hit drops the enemy speed by 3% if they're hit with this attack. Because everybody else will, for the most part, be stunned, slow, and unresponsive, your teammates can effectively just come in and mop everything up. But this is when we get into team-ups, because as you guys know, in Marvel Rivals, everybody has team-up abilities, and with Spider-Man, he actually has two, one that grants him an ability and one that receives an ability from somebody else. So if he's on a team with Venom, Venom can actually help you via symbiote bond. And what this does is it gives Spider-Man a dose of the symbiote that enables the suit expulsion ability. And activating this ability creates a sphere of black spikes that hit for 50 damage on any enemy that makes contact with him. Now this ability also adds a knockback effect, which basically helps you to get out of any kind of sticky situations. And with a 30-second cooldown, it is expensive, but it can be a lifesaver if you happen to have it up your sleeve. Now for the second team up, we have ESU Alumnus, which pairs Spider-Man with Squirrel Girl. Now the main part of that team up goes to Doreen, giving her a web bomb ability. But this team up also grants Spider-Man a 10% damage boost. And since Spider-Man is not the most high damage duelist that's out there, the extra buff could actually make the difference between a knockout and going back to the spawn room early. And so bringing all of this information together and kind of giving you guys a guide here, the name of the game with Spider-Man is mobility. With multiple movement-based abilities, Spider-Man is one of the quickest duelists in the game. And in fact, web swinging can keep him in the air and then allow Spider-Man to strike from above. Ideally, you should aim to activate your abilities quickly and then get out of sight as fast as you can, because your speed's really unmatched here. The other team will have a pretty hard time chasing you because of that, but once you're away, you can turn right back around and then start rushing the team again. Now, as a Spider-Man player, your focus should be on disrupting the enemy team. It shouldn't be going into the middle of a mosh and attacking everybody you can. You're gonna get yourself sent back to spawn, and you're not gonna be doing your team any favors here. You're perfectly prepared to interrupt healing abilities, or even healers themselves, or to land damage on less mobile heroes before getting away clean. So make sure you pick your targets, get in quickly, do as much damage as you can, and leave before they land a hit on you. Ideally, you should always keep at least one charge of web swing available while fighting, preferably two if the map is open enough for you to take any advantage of it. Don't rely on lasting long enough in the middle of a mosh for your ability to recharge and then get away, because there's a better than fair chance you're gonna end up going back to the spawn. And so while they do look like easy targets because they're incredibly slow, tanks should not be a high priority for you. Many of them are incredibly slow, and they'll have an incredibly difficult time taking down somebody as fast moving as Spider-Man, but their really high health makes them tough to defeat, and they seldom have easily interruptible abilities. And so that will leave Spider-Man with very few options to disrupt their part of the enemy team's plan, assuming they have one. And that goes double if they're coordinating properly and have a healer or even support characters that are backing up their tanks. A defense buff will also limit Spider-Man's damage output to almost nothing. And so in general, a well-functioning enemy team is going to be a problem for Spider-Man. A support character or a healer granting a damage boost to their allies or backing up their allies is just as big of an issue for one granting additional defense. Spider-Man doesn't really have enough health to take sustained damage, and he relies on his speed and a small hitbox instead. So if the enemy starts focusing on you and there's no one backing you up, retreating and regrouping with the rest of your team should be your top priority here. Between web swing, flip and flip, and wall crawl, you should have options to escape most all situations. And if you're waiting for a web swing charge, you can always use flip and flip to ensure that you're not cornered by any kind of an enemy team. But when you're able to act with the rest of your team, let the other heroes draw the enemy fire so you can just swing around and get a better shot at the strategist and vulnerable duelists. One of the more underrated abilities of Spider-Man is to actually observe and inform your teammates where everybody is. He can be a great source of recon, but don't be tempted into trying to take down tanks. And as I mentioned before, don't linger in the middle of a mosh or even surrounded by your enemies longer than you have to. Stay on the move, keep interfering. If the enemy team cannot coordinate their positioning or activate their abilities at the right time, your teammates are gonna have a pretty easy job taking them down with your help. And so having said that, let's get into counters. We're gonna start off with characters Spider-Man is best suited to counter, as well as characters that can counter Spider-Man. So for Spider-Man countering people, he does great against characters that just rely on being out of the way of a fight. Black Widow and Hawkeye are both incredible incredibly well countered by Spider-Man's speed and mobility, because it's really hard to maintain range when your opponent can move incredibly fast around the map. Adam Warlock is in a similar position, but for the opposite reason. He relies on proximity to his team to distribute damage with his soul bond, but he doesn't have the health to take too much pressure himself. So Get Over Here is a perfect way to pull Adam Warlock out of position, shut him down, and then take him out. Now, it's not only vulnerable backliners that Spider-Man does well against. Moon Knight specializes in taking down other Duelist heroes, but he lacks Spider-Man's maneuverability and lethality at close range. And in fact, Spider-Man's mobility and his really small hitbox makes him one of the few heroes that actually has a good shot at dodging Luna Snow's abilities. And while she has powerful team healing abilities in and of herself, her self-healing relies on landing hits with her ice shards. And so if she can't get a shot off on you because Spider-Man's too close, then it's easy to take her down. But for heroes that can counter Spider-Man, the Punisher is a major issue for him. Being able to shoot down a web-swinging target directly, or being able to set up a turret to lay down additional fire, makes Punisher incredibly deadly. Spider-Man doesn't really have any tools for dealing with multiple spread out targets. Scarlet Witch is a very focused problem for Spider-Man because her aim assists with consistent damage output along with 2 mystical projections make her a nightmare for anybody who's trying to flank anybody on your team or even themselves. But direct damage isn't the only counter for Spider-Man. Doctor Strange is a relatively low health tank, but the Shield of Seraphim is going to shut down any attacks from the front and can block any damage for Doctor Strange allies as well. But even with healers, which arguably is the hero class that Spider-Man is best suited to deal with, there are some counter picks. Jeff's mobility makes him hard to pin down, especially right in the middle of an enemy team, and his ultimate is incredibly tough to dodge, especially if you're not paying attention. Mantis is a great target for Spider-Man, but if she can stay behind another hero, her healing will actually outpace Spider-Man's damage. And so wrapping all this up, Spider-Man is one of the most difficult heroes to master in Marvel Rivals. It's the reason why he has a 5-star rating. He doesn't really play like any other Duelist heroes. You can't just go in attacking the enemy team head on and expect to get results. That's left for somebody like Iron Fist, a character that Marvel Rivals probably won't have enough sense to patch. But Spider-Man's ability suite is varied and rewards creative, thoughtful players, meaning you're going to have to think outside the box if you want to use him to his maximum potential. You're going to have to identify threats, strike quick, and then manage your resources to disrupt the team as best you can. While it is tough to master, the unmatched mobility, position control, and a small hitbox makes Spider-Man's skill ceiling one of the highest in the game. And with a good player, he would be virtually unstoppable and an outright menace to the enemy team. There's got to be some kind of J. Jonah Jameson joke to make there. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.